Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, June 28th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma in for Maya Trabulsi. It's a done deal and building it is underway. We're talking about a new port of entry along our border, which aims to reduce traffic and improve trade. Caltrans and San Diego officials partnered with Mexico and the U.S. to develop the project. Here's KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel.
We're right in front of the border fence here in Otay, Mesa, and right behind me are trucks laying down dirt and prepping the foundation for what will be the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, which is expected to be up and running by 2024.
It is also a symbol of the future of prosperity that we want to build for Mexico and the United States.
Local and federal agencies signed a memorandum of understanding to ensure the completion of a new port of entry in Otay Mesa. It's the first of its kind in the region to be connected to a toll road. Commercial and passenger vehicles will pay a fee to access State Route 11 upon crossing from Mexico. California's Transportation Secretary David Kim says the new entry will have an average wait time of 20 minutes.
When Otay Mesa East is complete, peak wait times at the existing ports of entry will be reduced by roughly 50% on opening day.
On average, Kim says border crossers wait 1 to 2 hours in line, while commercial truck drivers wait up to 6 hours to cross the border. Lieutenant Governor of California, Ilani Kounalakis, says border wait times is the biggest barrier commercial trade faces.
Mexico truly is California's most important and closest foreign partner.
The nearly $600 million project is also expected to reduce pollution along the border.
And the wait times for the trucks and for the private vehicles as they cross, their engines are going, their motors are still going, and so they're still spewing out greenhouse gas. So the more efficient we can make the crossing be, the less pollution there is.
Sandag says they're still working to figure out how much it will cost for drivers to access the toll road. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
And now an update on a story we've been following about a former caregiver accused of sexually assaulting 3 women at area nursing homes. California regulators have imposed a $16,000 fine against La Mesa Nursing Home Parkway Hills, where ex-certified nursing assistant Matthew Flukiger allegedly raped a resident twice in 1 hour. The California Department of Public Health has cited Parkway Hills for failing to put a policy in place to screen job candidates for past abuse. Flukiger had been accused of twice of sexual assault and once for sexual misconduct at 3 other nursing homes before Parkway Hills hired him. Regulators also cited Parkway Hills for failing to protect Flukiger's alleged victim at the nursing home and not monitoring inappropriate behavior of its staff toward residents. Parkway Hills hasn't yet responded to requests for comment from KPBS. Flukiger is in jail awaiting trial. Additional booster shots may not be needed to combat the coronavirus. That's according to new research on how long protection from the COVID-19 vaccine may last. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman explains.
Everything points into the direction of the vaccines being very protective.
A new study suggests the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines may protect for years against COVID-19 when both doses are completed, building the case that additional virus protection might not be needed.
I think it's encouraging that as a general rule, the general population may not need boosters going forward. In fact, I think we may have selective administration of boosters, for example, to older people or immunocompromised people who may be more likely to lose that response over time.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Christian Ramers at Family Health Centers of San Diego says this new study examined the cells which produce antibodies that fend off the virus.
We can make projections because these cells that were found in this particular study are very long-lasting cells. We can say, look, if we found them now, they're very highly likely to be around for a long time.
The study's researchers called the findings remarkable, but just a small number of people, 41 to be exact, were looked at.
One other thing that's really crucial here is not everybody's the same. So if we find in these 41 volunteers that there was a really good response, that doesn't mean that the whole population is going to have the same response.
The single-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine was not part of the study, but Ramers says it just adds mounting evidence of how effective the vaccines are, even in those rare cases where people who are vaccinated do get infected.
If you do get one of those breakthrough infections, it's highly likely to be much milder than it would have been otherwise.
The wild card here are the variants, but so far the vaccines seem to protect against all the ones we know of, even the more contagious Delta variant.
For whatever reason, we just got really lucky, I think, with how protective these vaccines are.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
One of San Diego's most public problems is also one of the most personal. Anyone experiencing homelessness has their own individual obstacles to overcome. That's the thinking behind the city's latest outreach effort. Several groups that specialize in outreach are talking with the hundreds of people living on downtown streets to see what they need to accept shelter and other help.
At the end of the day, these are our neighbors, these are our family members, these are our friends, and they're in a tough moment. And if we lean in as a community to lift them up, we can solve homelessness.
That was Councilmember Sean Elo Rivera, who says he himself has been on the verge of homelessness. This latest push, focusing on downtown, will last about a month. About 250 shelter beds are currently available. Excessive heat continues through San Diego County's desert and mountain areas. KPBS reporter Melissa May tells us what that means for the 4th of July weekend and the rest of the summer.
It's a similar heat wave to what we had last week, just not quite as hot.
Alex Tardy is the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service, San Diego. Tardy describes the monsoon flow that brings moisture from Baja, Mexico, and a big high-pressure area that has settled over Portland and Seattle. That wind flow is going to bring some tropical moisture to the San Diego area.
Not a hurricane, but tropical moisture, and that's what the monsoon flow does. And that looks like thunderstorms will become active over our mountains and maybe even spill into some of our deserts over the next couple days.
This western heat dome has been sitting over the western states, and as it shifts back down to the southwest deserts, the 4th of July weekend could bring extra hot temperatures to those areas. The current drought conditions could be affecting the county's temperatures.
But there is a connection between unusually dry areas and excessive or prolonged heat waves. So it's going to be a long summer, unfortunately, a lot like 2020, several heat waves. Probably all the way into September. And unfortunately, at least one or two of those are going to start affecting us here on the coast.
What will that mean for San Diego County?
Flex alerts and high fire danger and just plain excessive heat for a long time.
Excessive heat sometimes means potential power shortages, but no flex alert was issued today. California System Operator spokesperson Ann Gonzalez says the grid has enough energy for now, but the upcoming thunderstorms could cause problems.
The grid is stable and we're not expecting any resource shortfalls. And the thunderstorms, of course, always impact electricity systems because they can be damaging to equipment, both transmission and generators.
To keep up with grid conditions, go to caiso.com and click on the News tab, or follow them on Twitter at California_ISO. Melissa May, KPBS News.
All-time record high temperatures set just yesterday in Seattle and Portland were broken today. Seattle hit 107 degrees today and Portland hit 115 degrees. Those sweltering temperatures are unheard of in a region better known for rain. The heat wave was caused by what meteorologists described as a dome of high pressure over the northwest, worsened by climate change.
We're still talking about excessive heat warnings in the interior sections here of the Southwest for yet another day. That moisture, though, is going to be creeping westward out of central portions of the country. So that means we could get in on a little bit of shower activity and even some thunderstorms, likely in the interior sections and up in the mountains, but maybe we get even a little bit of some drizzle as far west as the metro as we head towards the middle to later part of the work week. We still have the excessive heat warnings that are posted for places like Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna until later this evening. After that, they will be allowed to expire. Temperatures for tonight not getting too cool. In fact, we only drop off to 65 degrees in Oceanside, Escondido getting down to 63, Ramona 62 degrees for that overnight low. And Tuesday is another hot day here across much of California out into Nevada. But here are these thunderstorms that are going to slowly begin to creep further west. Now, it still remains a question of exactly how far west they get, but it does look like the later part of the work week does feature a pretty decent chance to see a little bit of moisture moving into, especially into the mountains and some of the inland regions here. So highs out there on your Tuesday getting up into the mid 80s in Escondido, El Cajon getting up to 86 degrees as well. Borrego Springs, you're still up into the triple digits. And you'll notice again, as we put Futurecast through the day, there's a little bit of green that begins to pop up here. Not a whole lot, but some will be possible out there through your day on Tuesday and into Wednesday as well. So again, that moisture slowly inching further and further west. Near the coast, temperatures generally sitting in the low to mid 70s. Not a whole lot of change here over the next 5 to 7 days. In the inland regions, temperatures warm up a little bit as we head into Thursday. And again, I do think there's a possibility of a shower or storm, but nothing widespread. In the mountains, Wednesday, that's your best chance for a thunderstorm in the afternoon or evening. Otherwise, temperatures remaining in the low 70s. And in the desert, temperatures in the triple digits. And Wednesday, also a chance for a thunderstorm. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Jessica Pash.
It's shaping up to be a busy 4th of July weekend. AAA is forecasting nearly 48 million Americans will travel this holiday, the second highest total ever. Air travel is expected to be about 90% of pre-pandemic levels, while car travel is up 5% from 2019. Of the 3.3 million Southern Californians traveling, 2.8 will be taking a road trip.
So many people are just ready to get out there again. They've had to put those plans on hold. And from what we're hearing from our members, Auto Club members, is they are ready to travel.
AAA says San Diego is among the top travel destinations, along with Las Vegas and national parks like Yosemite. If you're hitting the road, get ready to pay more to fill up. California's gas tax increase takes effect July 1st. The automatic hike is part of legislation signed in 2017, raising gas taxes each year to pay for road and bridge repairs. It will rise to 51.1 cents per gallon, the highest in the country. The latest increase is just over half a cent, which means you'll pay about 8 cents more if you have a 14-gallon tank. Right now, the average price of a gallon of regular gas in San Diego County is $4.25. That's almost $1.17 more than this time last year. A San Diego researcher has helped an Australian colleague figure out how a massive ice-covered lake on an Antarctic ice shelf disappeared. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The Australian researcher, looking for far-reaching impacts of his country's recent wildfires, noticed a change in the Emery ice shelf. Satellite images gathered by the IceSat-2 on its pole-to-pole orbit revealed an event that might have gone unnoticed.
Right at midwinter, when you're expecting everything to just stay really cold and frozen and not much going on, especially anything involving water in liquid form, and then bang, a lake drained. And we would not have known about it had it not been for the benefit of satellite observations.
21 to 26 billion cubic feet of water poured into the ocean under the ice shelf. That's enough to tower over the skyscrapers of a huge portion of central New York City. Fricker says a fissure likely opened up in the ice under the lake. Once the water escaped, the ice cover fell and then was pushed back up, creating a rise in the ice. Fricker says a satellite is constantly gathering data on ice shelves in both Antarctica and Greenland.
So this capability that we've shown with ISAT-2 is going to help us learn about meltwater systems all around both ice sheets.
Fricker says understanding processes like these will help scientists improve their models, which aim to predict what will happen to the ice shelf under different circumstances. The findings are published in the journal Geophysical Research Letters. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
At least 3 San Diego County residents have died of COVID-19 after being vaccinated. That's according to our partners at iNewsSource, which broke the story. Earlier, I spoke with iNewsSource investigative reporter Mary Plummer. So, Mary, is there a common thread among the 3 people in San Diego County who died of COVID, even though they were fully vaccinated?
Well, all 3 had underlying medical conditions. As you mentioned, at least 3 San Diego County residents have died of COVID-19 after vaccination, which is what we confirmed with this story. There was a 73-year-old man who died at Edgemore Hospital in early February. That is a county-run facility in Santee. There is a 70-year-old woman who died in March, and then a 69-year-old vaccinated man who died June 14th.
And did the timing of when they got the vaccines play a role?
I can tell you that Jeffrey Schmidt, who is the 73-year-old I just mentioned, he tested positive 1 day after he received the first Pfizer dose. We don't know a lot about the other timing of the vaccines that the other 2 received, but in his case, experts who I've talked to expect that he contracted COVID before he was vaccinated. So it was something that was already in his system and already taking hold before he received that first dose of the Pfizer vaccine.
Okay, so most of the COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. are among the unvaccinated. What have medical researchers told you about how rare it is to get COVID and die after being fully vaccinated?
These deaths are incredibly rare. Across the U.S., there have only been about 750 documented deaths of fully vaccinated people. That's according to the latest data from the CDC. We interviewed one physician at UC San Francisco who said that the likelihood of dying from one of these vaccines is about the same as being hit by a meteor. So just incredibly, incredibly unlikely.
Many people who are resistant to getting the COVID shot are looking for evidence to support that decision. Do doctors worry that reports of fully vaccinated people dying of the disease might dissuade anti-vaxxers even more?
Certainly, I think we need to keep these deaths, while they are interesting in proper perspective. As I mentioned, these type of deaths are incredibly rare, and doctors who I've interviewed have said that these vaccines are quite trustworthy and quite worthy of everyone going out to get vaccinated. Even if you've already had COVID, doctors are still recommending that you get the COVID vaccine to make sure that you're fully protected.
Mary Plummer of iNewsSource, thanks so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. California has added 5 more states to the list of places where state-funded travel is banned because of laws that discriminate against LGBTQ people. Florida, Arkansas, Montana, North Dakota, and West Virginia were added to the list, bringing the total to 17 states. Most are being added because of new laws to prevent transgender women and girls from participating in school sports. The White House and Congress are vowing to help thousands of Afghans who face retribution for working with the American military during 2 decades of war. But KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says a special visa program designed to bring them to the U.S. is badly backlogged.
Before coming to San Diego in 2017, Ali Rasuli was a translator working with U.S. Marine Special Operations outside Kabul. A risky job that made him a target of the Taliban. Though he left the job to take a safer one as an accountant with an American contractor in Afghanistan, he still felt threatened.
In 2 occasions, 2 people came to me and said, okay, I know you from somewhere.
He denied being an interpreter for American forces, but after he was approached a second time,
like the same night, we moved. I quit my job and I called my employers. Okay, I'm now going to work for this company. That's personal issues. Even that employer didn't know that I used to work for the U.S.
Now that the U.S. is preparing to withdraw, Rusuli says he feels betrayed. He is Harari, one of the minority groups which is often targeted. He still has family in Afghanistan.
So these are like the 300 commandos.
Now, every day he watches videos on YouTube of the Taliban driving unopposed into Afghan cities.
It doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, absolutely, this is wrong. They shouldn't leave the country until we have a rational peace, at least, there.
Rusuli was allowed to come to the U.S. through the Special Immigration Visa Program, visas set aside for people who worked with the U.S. government. Noah Coburn, a political anthropologist at Bennington College, says the U.S. depends on local contractors in Afghanistan, but has really never had a plan to handle the fallout when their lives are threatened.
But that's very much a part of, I think, the way the U.S. views these global entanglements, trying to keep them temporary, trying to keep them economical, but not thinking through what some of the longer-term repercussions of them are.
With the American troops on the verge of pulling out, Coburn says there is a real potential for people to be slaughtered, especially members of minority groups who back the U.S. The Biden administration indicates that they will try to evacuate the Afghans to a third-party country while they await their U.S. visas. There is a backlog of roughly 18,000 applications, not including families. But the process is so slow that many more people gave up.
So if I've got the Taliban threat that is really imminent, I'm going to be not applying for this. And I've interviewed several people who have foregone the application process because it's a waste of time and waste of money for them.
The Afghan community in San Diego is tiny compared to other immigrant groups in the city. The area took in tens of thousands of refugees at the end of the Vietnam War. Armagan Karkar was a medical interpreter for the American military in Kabul before he came to the U.S. in 2014. He now works with Jewish Family Services in San Diego, counseling other immigrants from Afghanistan.
Before they are coming here, they are thinking like, when I go, everything will be easy for me in America. But the first year, it's difficult for them.
Still, it's been worth it, he says. Back in Afghanistan, working with the Americans was nearly the only option for thousands of Afghans, but for many, that option ended when they were threatened by the Taliban.
The situation is not getting better right now, so the only way is if peace comes in Afghanistan, that will be a solution.
At the moment, almost no Afghans are coming into San Diego. A combination of the visa process being slowed under the last administration and, more recently, complications caused by COVID. In the U.S., groups who resettle Afghans in America wait for everything to reboot, fearing time is running out. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Paiges Pantry is a North County nonprofit that feeds the hungry, but it has a dual mission. As KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne explains, it also helps teens and young adults on the autism spectrum.
19-year-old Paige Cook has autism, epilepsy, and apraxia. When the pandemic shut down her special needs school, she was left with very few options.
Paige was not having anything to do with online learning. She goes to a special school and they didn't have any kind of program. They didn't know what they were going to do with the kids, with the students.
Melinda Dalton Cook is Paige's mom. She decided to use her daughter's interest in agriculture to keep Paige engaged during the pandemic. It started by picking fruit at a teacher's house.
Harvested lemons and limes and grapefruits. She loved it. Like, Paige loved it. And she was just like hustling out there.
Paige and her mom began bagging and delivering the freshly picked produce to a local church to be given to people dealing with food insecurity. That is how Paiges Pantry was born.
Then we became partners with a lot of farms in San Diego that have some extra that they could drop it off at our house.
Now, every Friday, volunteers with and without special needs meet at Paige's house to bag the produce. Denise Padilla is one of the volunteers.
I volunteered at Paiges Pantry, and I put
all the fruits and vegetables in the bags.
Denise's mom, Rosa Padilla, drives her to Oceanside from Lemon Grove every week.
For Denise, especially, now that she's out of the school system, things for her to do are kind of hard to find. And that's a very typical situation for people with developmental disabilities that are either over 22 or they exited out of the school system.
Once the produce is bagged, volunteers enjoy delivering the food with a personalized note. Paiges Pantry offers its volunteers a new activity that gives back to those in need while also teaching new skills.
She has learned communication goals. She has learned administration goals. She types out her letters every week. So there's all different parts.
Paiges Pantry is a nonprofit and hopes to expand into a warehouse where more produce can get bagged. But for that, more donations and volunteers will be needed.
We also want to bring in anybody of any level of autism could come in. We will make accommodations for you.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
A small town in Northern California has settled a lawsuit with the owner of the Flintstones house. Hillsborough, a suburb of San Francisco, has called the colorful home a public nuisance and took the owner to court 2 years ago. But the owner, Florence Fang, countersued to protect all her dinosaur sculptures. Now Hillsborough will pay Fang $125,000 to dismiss her case. She agreed to apply for permits going forward, and everything can stay as it is. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.